You guys, I was 2 seconds away from publishing this podcast when I remembered that I forgot to say the most important thing ever. Happy freaking first day of summer. It is the summer solstice, June 21st, 2019. I hope you're having the best first day of summer ever. And to make it a little bit speedier, I am offering a free 1-hour Vinyasa yoga class and a free 17-page sneak peek of my summer solstice Ayurvedic cleanse ebook. So it comes as a bundle, so it's pretty easy to get. Just head to RebeccaWarfield.com/summer-solstice-celebration. But wait, solstice? So clever. It's spelled SOULSTICE. Get it? Solstice. Wordplay. So it's RebeccaWarfield.com/summer-solstice-celebration. And that solstice, it has a U in it. And if you're like, lady, I can't remember this stuff, no problemo. Just head to your show notes and there's a link right there. Happy first day of summer. Enjoy your free yoga class and your free ebook. Both the class and the ebook are yours for life. Happy summer. Okay, I have to make this quick because Hank, my French bulldog, is staring at me like I'm betraying him for talking into this microphone. And I guess in his world, I am. But I wanted to tell you guys that I just finished recording the first 5 videos for my July 10-minute summer staycation, and they're super fun. I mean, maybe I'm biased, but I had a pretty damn good time, and I think you will too. If you haven't done so already, head over to RebeccaWarfield.com/shop and check out the details of the 10-minute summer staycation. It runs July 1st through 31st, and you get 10 minutes of yoga, meditation, self-care, yoga nidra, healthy recipes, and more delivered to your inbox every day for the month of July. It's like a yoga retreat, but it's cheap. It's $31, and you get to do it from home, and you get to keep all the classes and all the material that you receive in your inbox every single day. So head over to RebeccaWarfield.com/shop and I will see you on the staycation. Okay, bye. Enjoy the episode. I'm coming, Hank. Hold on. This is Dharma Drops with your host, Rebecca Warfield. This podcast is a little bit about yoga, a little bit about life, and a little bit about whatever. And just as a warning, this podcast is unscripted, so that means I might regret a few things that I say. But hey, maybe I'll say some pretty awesome stuff too. Remember, these are musings, not truths. Buckle up, giddy up, because here we go. Dharma Drops listeners, this is your friendly neighborhood yoga host, Rebecca Warfield, and I am here with my new friend, Dr. Kate, founder of the Mini Me Yoga Program and School. Hi, Kate.
Hi.
How's it going?
It's going really well, and I'm super excited to be here chatting with you today.
I'm excited too. So tell me, where are you? Because you're definitely not in Wilmington, North Carolina, where I record most of my podcast episodes.
I am currently in London, West London in the UK. It's raining, so it's not that exciting. But
it's raining here too. It's not that exciting. So maybe we are in the same place.
Yes.
Now, you're not my first. Are you originally from the UK? Are you British citizen? Yeah. Awesome. So you're not my first guest who's British, actually. I just had another one on recently. Her name is Jane Chapman. And interestingly, I know you work with small children. What's the age group that you work with?
Yeah, predominantly we work with primary school education, and you would call that elementary school.
Yeah, elementary school.
Yeah. Sometimes we go to, 18 months up to about 9 or 10 years old.
So little.
We do actually, yes, the little tweet, they're gorgeous. So nice. And then we do actually have a tweenie program now, which, because as our audience has grown up, we now need to give them new tools. So now they're getting 10, 11, 12, 13. We've had to, of course, create other stuff for them. So, So our audience is growing older, so we have to.
As am I too. But my friend Jane, my friend who was just on the podcast, 2 or 3 episodes ago, she actually is, both British like you, but she also teaches teen yoga, but specifically yoga for young ladies. So it's just interesting that you both have been on the podcast and you're working with a younger age group. So that's
Oh my
kind of
goodness, I
fun.
want to meet her.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'd
you
like
can
to
meet
meet her
her.
for sure.
I don't know how often she goes home, but I'm sure she'd be happy to hang out and connect with you. She's about as funny as can be. And after we recorded her podcast episode, I shared with her my little British fun fact, which you might like too. For folks who don't know much about British history, this doesn't mean much, but my relative is Wallis Warfield Simpson, who, of course, is scandalous in British history. Yes.
Yes. Wow. What a connection.
Yeah. So it's kind of a claim to fame and kind of like a dark secret because she, like she maybe had some questionable behavior in history. So that's kind of my little fun fact there.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool though.
Yeah, it's not too bad. It's kind of a fun thing to talk about. But again, she's a little scandalous, so I don't know. So let's just get right into some mini-me yoga biz. And the Dharma Drops listeners are really used to me going all over the place. So who knows what we will cover in this episode. So can you tell us a little bit about mini-me yoga?
Yeah, sure. So Mini-Me Yoga was set up by me because I was a kids yoga teacher and I was living in the Middle East with my husband, and I was busy teaching kids yoga, having fun. And one day we had some civil unrest, which lasted quite a long time. And the civil unrest was so it was a big deal, and all of the expat community were asked to leave Bahrain, leave the island.
So scary.
Yeah, and we decided, my husband and I, that we would stay. One reason was because all of the teachers, well, most of the teachers are from the expat community. They were all leaving, and the children didn't have anybody to teach them, to be with them. So a friend of mine owned a school, and she asked me whether I would go in every day and be with the children, because they knew me from teaching yoga anyway. Sure. So I could be some kind of continuity, something safe for them.
You're an angel.
So, yeah. Well, it didn't feel like that at the time. It was just like, oh yeah, this is what we're going to do, And so we stayed, and it was a really interesting time because a lot of these children had seen things and heard things that probably most children would not. Just hearing guns in the background and seeing tanks on the road.
It just breaks my heart.
Yeah, and things burning, and vigilantes carrying guns. Tear gas going off. Everything was disrupted for them, and of course that then that caused them to have different behavioural issues. Some withdrew, some got aggressive. There was all these things happening. And so we were with the children every day, and that could come. Sometimes they couldn't come to school because of the troubles, and sometimes they could. But we opened as much as we could, and we were with the children. And it dawned on me that that we had to do something every single day that was the same, something that they felt safe with doing. So I just created this little program. And it was just 15 minutes long. And so then we started doing it with the children. And after about 2 weeks, we noticed a huge difference in the way that children were behaving, and that they were able to find their joy again. They were happy. They were smiling. They were hugging. Yeah, it was so amazing. And when they were coloring their mandalas, they were coloring lots of different colors instead of in maybe an aggressive way. It was just a transformation.
Yeah.
So then it's quite a tight knit community. So a couple of teachers that we knew that had stayed, they got to hear about what was going on, and they said, "Can you train us?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, I can, of course." So I put together a little workshop. And started training them, and that's how Mini-Me Yoga started.
That's amazing. That's not the story I was expecting, because we don't know each other, right? So like the things that you're saying now, it's not just the first time the Dharma Drops audience is hearing it; it's the first time I'm hearing it too. And I was expecting you to be like, "Oh, well, I had kids," or I taught elementary school. I wasn't expecting this like captivating and compelling, heroic story. Really, that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it was just the children were so instrumental in designing the program because, these are children all under the age of 5 or 6,
So little.
So little, and they
Yeah.
were so sure about what tools they wanted and what tools they needed. They were very quick to show me, and we knew instantly that this was working and that was working, and it was phenomenal. Actually, it was a phenomenal process to go through. And interestingly, this school was for children of all abilities. So it had children with autism, it had children with learning difficulties, physical difficulties. It is, so the program had to be all inclusive. It wasn't just for, one type of child.
Which that in itself is really challenging. I mean, I've taught kids yoga one time. Anyone who knows me knows that I've taught children yoga one time, and it was my nightmare. I'm so glad the world has people like you. I was like, what are you guys doing? They were like a little crazy, but I'm just really glad that there's people in the world like you, but also because I do teach yoga, I teach adults yoga. I know how challenging it is even to get adults of varying abilities and learning styles to be able to be a part of the same class and for everyone to get what they need out of it. So then to throw that in with what I consider complications, you probably consider a joy with children, that's tough.
Well, yeah, it's funny how you say that, isn't it? Yeah, because it could be seen as, tricky, but actually, children are wonderful because they are so open to everything, and actually they all want to be doing the same thing. They all want to be inclusive.
Interesting.
So it's nice, because they feel good about it. If everybody can join in, and actually kids yoga is not a perfect type of yoga in terms of, it doesn't matter if we get different looking tree poses or different looking downward dog poses. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, and hopefully for adults, they know that too, right? That they can look different in poses. That's fine.
Exactly. And so it's interesting, isn't it? Because that's one of the things that, I found with teaching adult yoga is that everybody is pushing themselves to get into these positions.
Endlessly.
And hurting themselves. And one of the questions I always have with when I'm training people to teach workshops, and they say, oh, but what if the children get into a position and they hurt themselves? I said, it doesn't happen. Kids are really clever. If it hurts, they stop.
Yeah, the ego is not really developed yet. It's not like competitive or anything yet. I can't tell you how many times teaching adults yoga, I have said like, hey, use a block. And someone's like, no. I'm like, okay, but these are your consequences to face, But little kids, I don't know. I don't have a ton of experience with little kids, but just what I do have, they're kind of open to doing whatever. So that's kind of nice.
And the main thing is with anything to do with, kids yoga is just make it fun. If you make it fun and if you make it engaging, it really is a very easy thing to do. And we it doesn't have to look one way and it doesn't have to be one way. And yes, sometimes the kids do need to blow off a little bit of steam. And then sometimes they just want to lie down and not do an awful lot. So it's about, adjusting that and working with them because they are the leaders in the class. And actually the program, the Mini-Me Yoga program, is designed for them to be able to lead their own yoga sessions.
So for who to lead their own yoga sessions? The teachers or you said teachers and parents?
So we teach, predominantly we teach we teach parents and teachers how to work with their children, whether it's in a classroom setting or home setting. However, our ultimate goal is to empower the children so that they have a system. They have a 15-minute program. It's a 7-step program. It's easy for them to follow. They have like magic yoga cards that they can use for their poses. They know their gains. They know their breathing exercises. They know how to do their positive thinking with water, Dr. Emoto. They know how to do the on game. They know all of that. So eventually, once they've done it enough times, then they can do it at home. And that's what we found is that children then, when they have this on a daily basis, then use each of the steps of the program when they need it. So it becomes part of their life rather than a weekly class or twice a week where they're just doing something. We want to give them life skills, tools that they can use every single day.
That's amazing. So when Jane was on here talking about yoga for young ladies that she teaches here in Wilmington, North Carolina, I kept saying, like, half as a joke, half seriously, that had someone taught me yoga when I was a teenage girl, my life would have been so different. And I was like talking about how much money I would have saved in therapy and all this stuff. But had someone given me a daily yoga practice when I was 6, I mean, that is like, that changes the course of someone's entire life. That's amazing.
Yeah. Honestly, we have been astounded actually about just how the children take these tools and then are creative with them and make their own, so they start to make their own themes up. So they might do like a cowboy, theme, or they might do a, Bollywood theme, or they might, whatever they're doing. And they take it and they run with it and they choose their music and then they're dancing and then they're doing the poses. So, that it's actually limitless to what they can do, and they become the leaders. So even though the teachers and the parents, maybe they're doing, hopefully they're doing it them daily, actually the children then take the lead and say, "Hey, Mom." Yeah, hey, Mrs. Whatever the teacher's name is, let me show you this. Let's do some yoga, and that's ultimately what we want. Because if the children are the lead, then they're taking their own well-being. They're managing their own well-being and taking responsibility for that already.
That's amazing. And to have that level of what's the word I'm looking for? Intentionality in life, just at a small age, that's really amazing. Because again, like, it's not, of course, yoga has benefits for the body, but to be able to take control of your own mind and, like you said, positive thinking and your own well-being at a young age, that's incredible work.
Yeah, we have a lot of actually quite a lot of psychologists that work with us, and adults that work with children with trauma. And one of the interesting things is this program has been very successful for them as well, because it actually helps the children process the emotional or mental trauma in a way that it's still fun. It's still a way that they can approach it. It's not scary, I should say, perhaps. Not fun, but it's not scary. So we had one little boy who sadly his father passed away, and he was obviously devastated. He was maybe about 7 or 8, and we have magic yoga cards, and on the back of the yoga cards are positive words. And immediately, these, we say that the yoga cards are magic because whenever you pick a card, that's the card you're meant to get. So
I believe that too.
Yes. And it's true. And this little boy reached into the pack and he picked the lion pose. And on the back of the lion pose was the word calm. And he said to his teacher, he said, "This is exactly what I needed. This is, to feel that calmness." And that's the word that he used every time he used to get upset or feel that anxiety coming, the trauma. He would use the calmness, and then he would do the lion pose and stick his tongue out, let it all go. So that's just like one little example of how when we give tools to children, that they can manage their own emotions, and that's key, especially when you're going into puberty and teenage years. If you've got those set of tools already,
yep, that's right.
What a help!
Yeah, and it's just interesting because I teach English at UNC Wilmington here in North Carolina. So I work with mostly young people who are about 18 to 22 years old, give or take a little bit, so maybe there's some more non-traditional students. And my old roommate, she is a behavioral specialist for pre-K. And so during the time that we lived together, after work, we would share all these classroom stories and stuff like that.
But since she's a behavioral specialist, sometimes I would consult her, be like, hey, I have this student who's causing this problem. And she's like, well, here's what we would do in pre-K. So I would do the exact same things in my classes. So like I had a student who was acting up all the time. He's like 20 years old and they couldn't get him to stop acting up. And she was like, he needs a job. Give him some responsibility. That's what we do in pre-K. So I was like, hey, I don't know his name, Johnny, do you want to take role for me for the rest of the semester? And he's like, sure. And we had no more problems. And it just makes me think about like getting the calm card. We need that as children and adults, right? Like what we need to live our most integrated lives, I don't think changes very much. We have different experiences, but we human beings we need the same things no matter what age we are.
Well, it's funny you say that because you have hit on the true magic behind the program.
I love magic.
I know, yay! You've got it, which is that, really the program isn't necessarily for the children. It really is for the grown-ups that are doing it with them to say, hey, you forgot to have fun. Come and have fun. You forgot that, these are techniques to calm you down. And then when you're calm, I'm calm as a child. When you're doing that, so it's been interesting to watch the teacher's reaction because it's brought so much more peace into the classroom. There's 30 children in the UK. We have like 25 to 30 children in the classroom, and each are going through their own life, their own motions, and somehow a teacher has to manage that as well as teach. I think teachers are the most amazing people on the planet, and they actually deserve.
They are.
They are. They deserve, the highest salaries, and they deserve to have, because they are in charge of teaching our future leaders and our whole society. So imagine if a teacher is calm and balanced and having fun, having some joy, and they're not stressed out. Oh my goodness, imagine what that classroom is going to be like to learn in. What a fantastic place to learn in.
And you just touched on something that actually my old roommate and we met last week. There's a place here in town where you can fill up your kombucha jugs pretty cheap. We met there for kombuchas. That's actually I'm drinking. For those of you listening, we are filming just so we can see each other, though I never post the videos, but I've been like sipping kombucha the whole time. But I was talking to my old roommate, Allison, if you're listening. Hey, Allie, what's up? And she was telling me that she's been working on some mindfulness programming in the schools. And we both were in agreement that really for the students to be able to embrace and embody a mindfulness practice, whether it's yoga or meditation, first, the teacher has to exemplify it. Because if the teacher is stressed out, if the teacher can't be mindful, if the teacher doesn't know what triggers a total meltdown in his or her own, body and mind in the middle of class or something, then they will have a hard time teaching mindfulness and running a mindful classroom. But when teachers, I don't know what teacher salaries are like in the UK, but in the United States, they're, beyond embarrassing. A teaching assistant here full-time, which isn't technically a teacher, but they do a tremendous amount of work. They make about $20,000 a year, which is close to the poverty line. You can't survive off that. So we're going to ask people to be nearly at poverty, right? But to also be mindful in their bodies and their minds, and then to be pleasant and mindful in the classroom. It doesn't work. I don't have the solution for that at all. I wish I did.
It's a really interesting topic because, exactly, teachers are in charge of our whole, society, the people that are going to be living in our society, the leaders, the teachers, and everything. I don't know how the teachers do it. I did it, when I was in that school for just a few short weeks, doing it every day, day in, day out, all of those hours. I was completely exhausted. And they deserve an absolute medal. And it's such an interesting topic because when I wrote my research paper for my PhD, it was on children's yoga and mindfulness, and with the 15-minute program. That's one of the things that we touched on, is that we had a questionnaire that went out to, the case studies and the children. And all of the children, bearing in mind they're all below, 7 or 8 in most cases, all of the children said that when their teacher was happy, they were happy.
Yes.
Yes. And when their teachers were sad, they were sad.
Oh, sweet things.
I know. And they understood when their teacher was angry or upset or sad. And maybe that teacher was angry or upset or sad from something completely not related to school. Maybe they were having a bad day or had an argument with their husband or wife or whatever it is. The children still knew that. Now,
they're so intuitive.
Exactly. And we call this, in quantum physics, we call this entanglement. And this is a clear case of entanglement. I know, it's really cool when you start to look at all these things.
That word's really interesting because it signifies a lot more than just an understanding, right? Or an awareness. It's it's exactly what it sounds like. It's entanglement. And I think I would often think about it as like, oh, they're intuitive, but you're right. It's all tied up, in the midst of the teacher's feelings. That's really interesting.
And so interesting because studies have shown that 2 cells that are not connected physically, if you affect one cell that has an entanglement with the other, that it changes both of them physically.
Ooh, this could be cold chills.
I know. And they call it the spooky theory because it's spooky, yeah?
They do the spooky theory? That's cool.
Because it's spooky.
It is kind of spooky.
Yeah. And so this is, so just to help us understand that children's cells, their DNA is changed by their environment. So,
what an enormous responsibility that is for adults. I mean, of course, having children around is a responsibility. I don't have children. I have a French bulldog. He's actually snoring at my feet right now. So if you hear him, sorry, but I don't have children. So I don't totally grasp the full responsibility. But then to know that even when I'm around someone else's child, if I'm all like Debbie Downer about things, like this has a real physiological effect, not just like how we feel in our bodies, but the way our bodies are operating. That's crazy.
Isn't it? And so we know from that if we can make an environment pleasant, for example, popping flowers in the room, having lovely music playing, classical music is excellent for children to learn in, having nice smells, maybe some oils, or I don't know, just nice things, that you can actually transform a teaching environment to a complete oasis, just for a few things, and those children are going to be affected physically by that. And then I know on one hand, yes, we've got that responsibility, but on the other hand, wow, we can just do a few sort of simple things and we make such a huge difference. And we make a huge difference to ourselves as well.
Well, I was just thinking about that, kind of going back to the conversation I was telling you about with my friend Allison, is that it starts at the top, right? And so setting up the room like that, or whatever it is you do, playing music or just whatever, that gets yourself a little more centered, which then in turn has a domino effect onto others, so it's really cool. And I like how these things sort of come full circle, because as a yoga teacher and an English teacher, it's a good reminder for me, because sometimes I do go in, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so tired. Like my hip hurts right now. I'm like, my hip hurts. There's so much to do. And it's not good for me. And it's not good for anyone else in the space.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because then we can take responsibility for our own thoughts, our own actions, and we can just be more aware. Okay, there is always a time when we need to process, and there's always a time when we have that, if we want to grieve or be sad, of course, yes, of course we're going to do that. But, maybe when we're, especially teaching kids yoga is a great reminder, because one of the key things that I always teach is when you're working with children, you have to put all that aside.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there is no room for you to bring in anything other than your, happy, positive self. And because those children will pick up on it.
Yeah.
And so you push that to one side. But the interesting thing is that when you do that and you go into that 15, 20 minutes of doing that fun yoga or whatever it is with the children, then your whole mood shifts.
Fake it till you make it, friends.
Yes, yeah, exactly. It's that easy, So they teach us so much, and give us that space just to to raise our vibration.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I guess the tricky part is too, so if we're looking at teachers, and not just teachers, but parents who are struggling just on the day to day to get through life, because I mean, life is hard, that what's I think so important about this work is that it teaches them their own triggers. It teaches them their own state of well-being in the moment, because I think a lot of people, myself included, especially before I found yoga, don't know. Like you go around in life thinking this is just what life feels like. And then suddenly something arrives. Maybe it's the magic card from your kid's class, or something like that. And you're like, oh, there's a different way of thinking and living this life. Who would have known?
Yeah, I love that, because we have part of the program we have. You may have heard of Dr. Emoto, and he's the scientist that photographed the water crystals.
Oh yeah,
when they were
I think a number of people have brought that up on this podcast because it's like so amazing. But will you tell a little bit more about it? Because I think it's been a while since someone's talked about it.
Yeah, and it's lovely. So we share this with the children, and they understand that we can charge up water and we can make it into magic water. So we put our water bottles on the card with the positive word on it, and then we say, I am calm, or I am happy, and then we drink the water.
I'm about to do this with my kombucha.
Do it. And then we we're drinking that magic water. But even more amazing is that we are mainly water, so we're like water bottles. So even if we stand on the magic card and say I am happy or I am whatever, we're charging ourselves up. And so we've had stories, because of course children go back and they do certain things with their parents that they've learned, but obviously there's no explanation there, because they've just been taught to do it.
Right.
So we've had these stories where parents have come back and said, oh, I had a headache and my son gave me some magic water, some happy water to make me better.
Oh, they're so sweet.
I know. What do you know where he's learned? Where's that come from, kind of thing? And they all
from the universe. Duh.
Yeah. And they all say, it's so funny. And we drank it and we did feel better.
That's hilarious. And again, the things that children need are the same thing adults need. Imagine if every morning we all stood up and we're like, I am happy. I am magic. Having an affirmation or a mantra every day. That's amazing.
Yeah. It's so powerful for them because, as a child, there's a lot of things that are not within their power. They're not decision making. So they're not in charge of most of their life. There's, people all around them making decisions. And for them, sometimes they, just like we do, we feel down and we feel yucky, whatever's going on. But how do we change that? How do we shift ourselves? As grown-ups, we know we might go for a run, we might do a bit of yoga, we might go get a Starbucks, I don't know, whatever we whatever we want to do. Children don't have that, they don't have those choices yet. But what they can do is that they can obviously stand on their cards or drink their water, and then they can change their moods. They can change and shift their emotions. It's a tool of empowerment for them.
That's so cool.
They can decide.
So you told me before we started recording that your Mini-Me yoga program is now in 32 countries. Yeah?
Yes. We are now in 32 countries, and we are translated into a few different languages as well. So we have people teaching in French and people teaching in Spanish and people teaching in Irish, Gaelic Irish. And we have our cards are being translated into Chinese and some other languages I forget now. But yes, it's all systems go. We have many ambassadors around the world teaching in different settings.
That's amazing. So 32 countries, that's a lot of countries. And are you finding that the outcome is the same, or are there cultural differences in embracing a yoga program? Because I know, like, some people look at yoga like it's this mystic, like, I don't know about this thing. And other cultures are like, so like United States is so immersed in yoga right now. It's like the most popular thing to do. So it's totally open to this sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I started it when I was in the Middle East. So,
And how long ago was that? I'm sorry, maybe you told me.
that was 9 years ago,
9 years?
9 or 10 years ago, maybe 10 years ago. Yeah, and so that was in the Middle East, and they were very receptive to it there. And yeah, I think we haven't had the cultural thing, because as we've said, yoga is very widely accepted across the board. So we've been very, very lucky. In the UK, it's been interesting because the UK was actually one of the last places that we came to, only maybe 3 or 4 years ago, but it's had the biggest growth because in the UK, the government has now funded. It's called a sports premium funding. So they're encouraging children to get up and move, and
that's
and
awesome.
so they've given, it's really good, and they've given schools extra funding for that. And our curriculum, our program falls underneath that funding.
God, that's cool.
Yeah, so we've had the biggest growth here, and we now have an amazing team and an amazing lady called Ashley Costello, who's a child psychotherapist and a kids yoga teacher, ex-teacher. She runs the whole of Mini Me Yoga now, and and all of the ambassadors around the world, because it got so big. And actually, they're much better at it than I am now. I really enjoy watching where they are taking it and how they're working with the different schools, because now schools can become accredited schools. So not only do we go in and teach the program, what Ashley has done is set up a whole accreditation system so that these schools can now become Mini Me Yoga schools. They have all of their staff trained in all of the programs, because we have several now. And then the children get involved in giving us, doing all this amazing, feedback, and they do lots of evidence to show how they've implemented it in their day, how they're doing it within their school time, and they do diaries and journals and massive mandala paintings and all sorts of different.
That's really cool.
Oh my goodness, it's amazing.
Well, what I like about the accreditation is that it becomes part of the culture then, right? Because there are people that like go into schools and teach a yoga class here and there, or like one teacher that works at the school does dabbles in yoga here and there with the students and stuff. But if it's like an accredited school, now it's part of what they do. And so I think that maybe, I guess, I don't know, I have no evidence for this, but I feel like that creates this system where the teachers start practicing more, the administration starts to practice more, and becomes something that everybody does and everyone's a part of, rather than this one person like championing, for everyone to be more mindful and integrated.
Yeah, it's a really clever idea, and I love the way that Ashley and the team have integrated it, because they understood it, because they're all ex-teachers. They're all, they of that mindset. They know how difficult it is to try and fit things in the day, and teachers are juggling, and how to work that. So they are very much making it part of everybody's thought process. And interestingly, then of course the parents want to come on board and do it, because the kids and the teachers are doing it, and so the parents are then coming on board more and more and saying, well, we can do this at home as well, because the kids are already bringing their yoga poses home, and they're charging up their water, or doing whatever they're doing. So it's fantastic, and it's interesting. So much so, it's been very popular in the UK that we've now been nominated. Two of our schools. One of our schools was actually awarded the Princess Royal Training Awards last year.
Oh, that's cool.
That's amazing.
Because of that training, and they now have become a champion of Mini-Me Yoga and became a hub. So they now invite all of the schools in the local area to come to their schools where they host the training. They believe in it that much, and it was featured on the local news and all sorts.
So cool.
Of so
you're a rock star. You are doing the damn thing, aren't you?
Well, brilliant team. I mean, it was just fantastic, really, to watch it. And I know that we've got a nursery now that have been nominated this year. So let's see if we had an elementary school, a primary school last year that won it, and now we've got a nursery in there. So let's see.
So a nursery, what's the age range for a nursery?
It's preschool. So it could be babies up to 4 or 5 years old.
Yeah. That's so cool. Congratulations on such an amazing achievement.
I know, it's amazing. So all of that evidence, all of that hard work done by the schools and done by the children have been rewarded. And I really like that.
Me too.
Because they feel good about it then. And then everybody else is like, oh yeah, they're doing this. So it spurs everybody else on, like you were saying, instead of that one person trying to climb up the
and no one's listening to them. You know what I mean? Everyone's like, yeah, yoga,
Exactly. So, and it's becoming more mainstream talk. So, a few years ago where we might say, oh, it's really important that kids have fun and do yoga. Sometimes the response was, kids always have fun anyway. Why should they, they don't need more fun, or, all these kind of responses. Schools have been learning. And now the UK government have just implemented, I think it's 370 schools are being test piloted for a mindfulness and yoga program. So the UK government are really taking note about what is happening to our children, because 1 in 3 children below the age of 11 has a mental illness in the UK.
It's so young to already have that suffering. That's so young.
Yeah.
This is a little bit different, but I just think it's telling the way that the education, institution, for lack of better words, is moving. Even here in Wilmington, North Carolina, UNC Wilmington just started the country's 2nd yoga minor program. Yeah. So college students can now minor in yoga. And I don't know the full details yet. It just launched. In fact, the first semester might actually be this coming fall. So I don't know the full details yet, but it can lead to a teacher training. But I think it's really important that young people, obviously you're working even younger, but you're working with little kids, and my friend Jane's working with teenagers, and the university is now working with college students to say hey, this is something that we can all have in our lives. Yeah,
it has to become, to be effective, one needs to practice something 3 or 4 times a week. For it to really take hold. And so, if we can integrate these tools and everybody have access to them, such as that, okay, so now you can do, you can study it and then you can share it. How fantastic. I love that.
Yeah, it's awesome. So how many people are teaching Mini-Me Yoga? So I know you're in 32 countries, but do you have an idea of how big your team is? How wide is the reach?
Well, it's an interesting question, because a lot of our ambassadors are maybe teachers or housewives and things like that. So sometimes, they have periods where they'll be teaching, and then sometimes they'll be not teaching because maybe they get pregnant or life happens or whatever. So it's always fluctuating. But we have, a couple of hundred ambassadors at any one time working. For example, this year we reached in the UK something like 42,000 children already, new children this is, this year up to date, so half a year. So that's just one country. Admittedly, UK is the strongest at the moment because of that funding.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, money goes a long way.
Yeah. I mean, we would like to do more in the United States, but I think we have a really strong team in the United States, in Boston, Louisville, Kentucky.
I wasn't expecting you to say Kentucky for some reason. Nothing against Kentucky. That just wasn't the place I imagined you were going to say. I've never been there. This is not a judgment.
It's funny how it ends up. The team they're very strong. And one of the things that they come up against, I think, in the United States is there's quite a lot of paperwork. I don't know, in the UK.
For everything. Yeah. There's paperwork and red tape everywhere.
Yeah, and that's been our stumbling block, in a lot of cases.
Yeah, do you mean for the schools? It's really hard to do stuff with schools in my experiences because of the red tape, and there's a lot of rules, there's a lot of food allergies, there's a lot of essential oil allergies, stuff like that. Yeah. So it's tricky.
Yeah. Yeah, so we tend to do more private settings, in the US. So not so many in the schools, so our reach wouldn't be as big.
Yeah.
But it's interesting.
I'm sure private settings still work. I mean, anything will be effective if you do it and you do it well. But there's something to be said about having that like public school setting that really, because then it becomes part of every single day and hopefully in every single class versus like an after school thing, because then it's an after school thing is just fun. It's an activity. It's not something that you embody necessarily, I think, at least for me.
Yeah, I agree because, we have this programming or this mindset that if you're doing it in school, then it's official.
Right.
It's like
it's meaningful now.
Yes, it must mean something, So, and I think that, that programming or that mindset helps us to know that this is important. I should be, looking after myself. I should be making sure that my mind is calm. I should be spending that time just making sure that I feel okay. And it's not like something that I just do after school or in my spare time, because actually that's the wrong way around.
Right. Because this is work that we do in everything, right? Like we come back for adults, we come back to our mantra all the time. We come back to our intention all the time. We return to changing our thoughts all the time. It's not just something that we do after work or when it's convenient. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And one of the interesting parts of research that I did initially is that if you are able to have fun and shift your mindset to that positive, fun, or, joyous state or calm state, whatever terminology you want to call it, then any task you go to tackle after that it's not too difficult because you're already in that mindset. But if you are already feeling down and overwhelmed or a little bit sad or a little bit angry or any of those things, and then you go and try and do your maths puzzle or, sum, and you're trying to work out algebra or whatever, I know some people are good at that, but I'm not.
Just to digress for 1 second, I just had a conversation the other day that I really wish people, when I was young, speaking of starting things early, that I wish someone would have told me I was good at math. Everyone told me I was bad at math and I believed it until I got to college and I had to go through remedial math and I did really well. And then I ended up doing really well in all of my math classes. So,
wow.
You know what? We're all good at math.
Yes, thank you for that.
You are good at math.
I feel like I can add up very well when there's lots of nice shoes and handbags and dresses. Yes, I can add that up very quickly.
Me too. I can figure that out pretty easily. But sorry, I digress.
It's just motivating us in the right way, isn't it?
That's right.
But if you go to tackle that problem or that challenge or your homework and you're not in the right state of mind, then you're going to be sitting there for hours and it's not going to come to you, and actually it's a complete waste of time. However, if you took 15 or 20 minutes out and actually said, you know what, I'm actually going to have some fun. I'm going to give myself a break. I'm just going to do a bit of meditation. I don't know, have a bit of a dance around, whatever it is.
I wish everyone could see you like dancing right now. Yeah.
You can tell I'm a kids yoga instructor. Yeah. I'm
not a kids yoga instructor and I do that too. So you're in good company.
I get a bit animated and I'm like, it's actually much easier. So, of course, if we are in schools sharing with children, well, okay, let's look after our mental and emotional well-being first of all. Then let's tackle the learning. Studies have shown that academic performance goes up, and it goes up every single time.
That's amazing.
So it's a win-win for everybody. So, yes, okay, I understand that the school curriculum is action-packed, and I understand that teachers don't have a lot of time, and the teachers are often torn because they are, having to tick the boxes that, the governments have set. But if the governments, and the governors of the schools can give the teachers a little bit of leeway just to have that creative input and say, hey, let's shake off all of that, excess energy, or let's have a dance around, let's do a bit of meditation first, and then we'll tackle the subject. They would be able to do the academic stuff in a much shorter time.
It's weird to me too that the evidence is so clear for all of this, and we've seen it in studies over and over and over, whether it's about recess or yoga or meditation or whatever it is. It's interesting that it's still, at least in the United States, there's still a lot of resistance to this, because it's like, no, we have end of grade tests that we have to prepare for, but which those end of grade tests determine a lot of funding for the schools. So it just seems like a no-brainer to me, like, okay, let's give 30 minutes a week, can split it up over a few minutes per day, and your EOGs, your end of grade test scores, will probably be better, which, if I understand the system correctly, it changes, and I'm not in the public schools, but if I understand correctly, they'll get more funding. It's a win-win.
Yeah. It is a win-win, and I think we're slowly winning. But unfortunately, it's taken children to have these mental health issues. It's certainly in the UK. It's taken them to, a lot more children are having real issues, and it's actually the pressure of school, pressure of society, pressure of all these different things that we didn't have 20, 30 years ago, but we still got the same school system. The school system hasn't changed in the last however long, yet everything else has changed. So that in itself doesn't make sense, it's taken that for the for school governments and schools to take this on board. But it's interesting as well, because a lot of the schools in the UK are doing this under their own wind, their own umbrella. So they are very aware of what's happening, and they are choosing to use their funding, which is for physical education. They're actually choosing it to do the mini yoga program, the 15-minute program, which incorporates some asanas, some poses, but there's the whole well-being program. So they are very well aware of it, of what's happened. So it's good that they do have that opportunity, but not a lot of countries, I guess, have that funding or have those opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, the funding is critical, and I think about, there's a nonprofit organization here in Wilmington called Yoga Village, and they do amazing work, and they bring yoga to communities that need it, including, and not just, children and young adults, but any underserved community they will offer yoga to. But I can't speak for them, but this would be their dream, to be able to go into schools and offer this, especially schools in areas of town that maybe are underserved, where there are more problems at home, and stuff like that. But again, the red tape, and there's no money, so without the money, it's really hard to be able to launch these programs. So you're so lucky in the UK to have that funding. Hopefully the rest of the world will catch on and follow suit.
Yeah, I really hope so. And I feel like it's coming, and I feel there's so many amazing champions out there that, that it's very hard not to listen to us all. seeing there's more and more of us. So that's exciting.
Yeah. Well, hopefully some people from this podcast will be inspired. Most of the listenership is in the United States, but I always talk about each episode. I give a new update for how many countries have downloaded. And I don't know where I'm at now. I haven't actually looked lately, but the last time I checked was 27. So maybe there'll be some people in other countries who are listening about Mini Me Yoga and they're like, we want to do this and we want to give money to do it.
Yes. Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, that would be amazing. We are always looking at expanding our family. So, if anybody wants to come and join the mission, then they are all welcome. And we provide training online because we have so many, countries on board. It's not always possible to do the training face to face.
Yeah.
So we're well equipped and we can do it online and
that's awesome.
So that we can start going out. So that's cool.
So if people wanted to train to become, what's the language you use? Ambassadors, teachers for Mini Me Yoga? Ambassadors. I liked how you were like ambassadors and an ambassador for Mini Me Yoga. Where would they go to get more information?
So if they would like to email Ashley at minimeyoga.com or info@minimeyoga.com and just put Mini Me Yoga Ambassador in the subject line, and we can send you all of the information on all of the programs and how it works. And then we can train you up and you get everything. So you get all of your materials, all your marketing, you get support of the entire Mini Me Yoga team on a closed Facebook group. We're all very, connected.
Oh, cool.
And it's really lovely.
So it's like a community too. That's awesome.
It really is. It is. We call it a family, and it really is about supporting each other because we're all going into different areas. We're all going into different situations. We all have different skill sets as well. So we have a lot of maybe we have psychologists. We have Steiner school, educators. We have mainstream educators. We have parents. We have all sorts of nurses. We have all sorts of different skill sets so that we can draw upon that for all of us, all of our classes and all of the stuff that we teach, which I really love. And so, they become part of the family, and then we'll support you to go out into your community and just start training people up right away.
Awesome.
Training the parents and the teachers.
So you said Ashley at minimeyoga.com, is that right?
Yes.
Or info@minimeyoga.com.
That's right.
Cool.
It'll still go all to her. So that's
awesome.
Right.
So what I'll do for listeners is I will put those email addresses in the show notes. So if you're listening, if you go to your app and hit details, there'll be links to those emails there. So you can find them there. So if you're driving or something, you don't have to get out your phone and type or text or anything. So they'll be in your show notes when you are ready.
Yay.
Awesome.
That's wonderful.
So, Kate, is there anything else that you want to share about the program or about anything else happening with Mini Me Yoga that you want the audience to know?
Well, I think what I just like to say is that no matter what is happening or what is going on with children or in your own life is just to try and have some fun. And
that's the spirit.
And it's surprising how much magic there is in just having fun. So whether it's running outside or dancing around or whatever you want to do, just take 5 minutes for you and your children or you and the children in your care or in your classroom, and just have fun. And that power of you having that fun and just feeling that joy, that child will light up like you've never seen before.
That's so cool.
I know, and that's the true magic. And if everybody could help us in doing that, then we can all shift to a much more peaceful world and get these children all the cool tools that they need.
Yeah. It's so inspiring and exciting. I've been thinking the whole time, maybe I could teach kids yoga.
You could.
I probably.
Sure.
I had no idea what I was doing. It was more like, we really need someone. Can you do it? I was like, sure. And then I walked in. I was like, why? what is happening in here? But I just wasn't prepared, So the training part, I think, is pretty important.
Yes, it really is because it's just top tips on how to, manage and how to structure something, because children need a structure, but they need a structure that they can create within. Mm-hmm. So it's not rigid, but something that they can, anchor into and go through, especially little children. But yeah, you could definitely do it. You're lots of fun. So
thanks.
The kids would absolutely love you.
I mean, I tend to have a pretty good time, in most things that I do, but I go back, it's the training part, because I was trained to teach like vinyasa yoga for adults. And I was like, what are they all doing? They're like all talking. And they, and I told Jane in the episode with her, when I was teaching, I taught for a dance camp. I taught, yoga for teenage girls. And it was like at the end of their dance camp week. And like we came into Shavasana and I was like, you guys can just relax. And they all started talking. And I was like, I thought you were relaxing. And they're like, we are. And I was like, okay, fine.
Oh my goodness. I love it. Because it doesn't always go to plan. I remember I was teaching in the Middle East once, and it was actually not long after all the troubles calmed down. And I was asked to do a peace camp. And this peace camp was where all the children, and they were teenagers, so it's kind of a little bit not what I would do every day. I was more of the little children, but I would teach teenagers like a bit of acro yoga or whatever, just to have some fun. And because it's the Middle East, we had the boys in one camp and the girls in the other camp. And so one day I was teaching all the girls and one day teaching all the boys. And I thought the boys were going to be, the challenge. And the boys were not. The boys were great. And they just followed along and they did whatever. And it was wonderful. And then the girls came and they were getting out their mobile phones. Sometimes it just doesn't go to plan, and that's okay.
That's such an important part of teaching too. I think teaching anything is just, you have to roll with it. I can't tell you how many things have fallen flat, or like I walk into the classroom to teach English and I'm like, I don't know what's wrong with everyone today, but this is not working. I think a teacher's best resource is just to roll with it, and be flexible with whatever may come.
Exactly. You there's always a way. You just not perhaps the way that you were planning.
Yep, that's right. I know a lot of yoga teachers who they plan their classes out. They write down step by step what they're going to do. For me, that adds too much pressure. Because then if things don't go to plan, I'm like, I don't know what to do. I feel so locked into that structure. So I guess the big secret to my teaching is I walk in and I just feel the room okay, this is what we're going to do. And as we go and if things aren't working out, I readjust.
Yeah, it's the best way. And I think that's the really cool part. If teachers were given that freedom in an educational setting.
Right.
How much more empowering would it be? But, they have to. They have to follow the structure and they have to tick the boxes. I get it. But, if they could, adjust slightly, then that would give them so much help.
So cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So one thing that I always end the podcast with is, because the tagline for Dharma Drops podcast is yoga, life, whatever, because I really believe that there's, of course, yoga is a huge part of my life and it's infiltrated everything that I do, but there's this big world of other things happening in life. So just before we part ways, I'll ask you the same questions I ask everyone else. Outside of yoga, what are you doing these days? Are you reading good books? Are you watching good TV? Are you doing anything exciting?
Yeah, I actually teach magic classes to grown-ups around the world.
I just threw my pen because I'm so excited.
Yeah, so that's what I do.
So wait, tell me, I need to take a magic class. Tell me about this.
I actually trained in an ancient mystery school, and it's much like the Western philosophy. The Eastern philosophy is yoga, and so we have all of the yogic systems, but the Western philosophy, which matches that, is the mystery school and actually Hermetic teachings. So I teach things like sacred geometry, astral travel.
I just talked about sacred geometry on my last podcast episode. I had it was two because I had a special release the other day. So it was the one before that with Jackie DeConti. And she was talking about someplace I don't even know what it's called, something of like the sacred mirrors or something like that. And it's all this sacred geometry stuff. And I was telling her a story about like my own experience, I think, with sacred geometry that arrived in meditation. But then, of course, I question everything in life. So then I wasn't sure if it was. But now I feel like the universe is speaking to me about this.
Mm-hmm. Very important part. And I love sacred geometry and I use it a lot. In Minimi Yoga, we use it a lot. But I teach grown-ups how to use sacred geometry in their life. And I teach how to we do shamanic journeying. I teach how to connect into your higher self.
You might be my most favorite person in the whole wide world. This is amazing.
Yeah, it's so cool. And I get to teach crystal magic and learn how to read your Akashic records with crystals and crystal grid your home, all sorts of different.
That's amazing. That was not what I was expecting you to say. I don't know. I had no real expectations, but kind of like the Kentucky thing, that just wasn't what I was expecting.
Yeah, it's like a magical life. It's always, it's always a surprise.
Mm-hmm. That's so cool. So if we wanted to do one of your trainings, how will we find out more about that?
So my website is reclaimyourcrown.co.uk. And you can find out about my classes, and then you can contact me there. You can contact me on Dr. Kate at iqmclinic.com, which is more the holistic medicine side of stuff that I work with grown-ups. So I teach a lot of magic classes, but also do a lot of sessions for people, holistically. So they, using those ancient methods. So yeah,
that's awesome.
Yay.
Is there anything exciting that I don't know how, I really like TV, which I shouldn't watch as much TV as I do, but I actually just downloaded or subscribed to BritBox, which is British television, because I want to watch British mysteries, So is there anything exciting happening on British television that we can watch or we should be watching if we can watch it?
There's so many cool things. I mean, if we're talking like magical stuff, then The Discovery of Witches is really good.
And
that's on Amazon Prime.
Okay.
And it's set in Oxford University. And it's about... we've got witches and vampires and all sorts in there. So if you like magical stuff, that's kind of cool. Also, BBC have just done a really good series called Killing Eve, and it's a very British.
I think I heard about this.
Yeah, it's really good. It's very British. It's very British sense of humour. It's about a female assassin, but she's a fantastic actress, and it's a dark comedy, if you like. It's not really a comedy, but
I like dark comedy.
We've got a weird sense of humour in the UK.
British humor and American humor, they're different, but I know a lot of people in the United States who love British television. In fact, my boyfriend's mom, that's like all she watches, the news and British mysteries. That's all she watches. And I know a lot of people here who really love British TV. So it's the motherland. It's here,
Yeah, good. But yeah, I think you'll like Killing Eve. That's good. I think they're my two recommendations at the moment.
Yeah, awesome. Cool. All right. Is there anything else you want to share with us before we part ways today?
Just that I've had a really, really great time.
Me too.
I loved it. I've talked about my favorite subjects, which is yoga and magic. So I'm pretty happy.
Awesome. Me too. So thank you so much for being here. And then again, for those of you who want to find out more about Mini Me Yoga, you can check out the show notes. And otherwise, until we meet again next time, my friends, bye.
Bye, everyone.
Well, shoot, guys. Thanks for listening to this episode of Dharma Drops podcast, Yoga, Life, Whatever. As always, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to whatever app you're listening to this podcast on, but especially iTunes or Apple Podcasts, because they're kind of the people that run the show in this whole podcasting world. So if you're listening on Apple, what's it called? Apple Podcasts? That's what it's called, Apple Podcasts. If you're listening there, make sure to rate, review, and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. It's a great way to share this podcast with others. As always, you can catch up with me on Instagram at Rebecca Warfield Yoga and at Dharma Drops Podcast. And you can find all my offerings and shenanigans and mala bracelets and mala necklaces and magazine and all the podcast episode and everything your heart ever desires on RebeccaWarfield.com. Hey, remember, these are musings, not truths. You can pretty much trust everything that everyone on my podcast says, except for me. I mean, I'm not lying. I'm just kind of over here talking, but you're probably used to me by now. Okay, y'all, I'm out. Musings, not truths. See you next time. Bye.